The deep space cruiser Endeavour moved silently through the endless darkness of space. Its silver hull reflected the pale light of distant stars as it drifted past the edge of a sector claimed by the Terethian Empire. For humanity, this was a historic journey. It was the first time an Earth ship had crossed so far into alien territory. Every member of the crew knew they were carrying the weight of humanity's future on their shoulders. Captain Elias Ward stood on the bridge, hands behind his back, gazing at the vast display screen that showed the stars around them. He was a tall man with sharp eyes and a calm expression. Years of service had taught him how to mask fear, but inside his heart carried the same tension that pressed upon every soul aboard Endeavour. Humanity was young in the eyes of the galaxy. They had only just discovered faster-than-light travel. Compared to ancient empires, Earth was like a child holding a candle in a storm. The crew waited in silence until the communications officer spoke. "Captain, incoming transmission." "It's them." Everyone straightened at once. "On screen," Elias ordered. The screen flickered and a figure appeared. The alien was tall, with shimmering blue skin and golden eyes that seemed to look straight through the soul. Behind him stood banners of silver and crimson, the colors of the Terethian Empire. "I am Admiral Zalar of the Terethian Imperial Navy," the alien said, his voice calm yet commanding. "You have entered the border of our empire. Identify yourselves." Elias stepped forward, keeping his tone respectful but steady. "I am Captain Elias Ward of the United Earth Fleet. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." The alien studied him for a long moment. Then Admiral Zalar gave a slow nod. "We are aware of your species, humans. You are new to the stars." The crew exchanged nervous glances. The way he said it was both casual and dismissive, like a teacher commenting on a student who had just learned to write their name. "Indeed, Admiral," Elias replied carefully. "But new does not mean unwilling to learn. We hope to understand more about your people, and perhaps share what little we know in return." For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then Zalar's golden eyes glowed faintly. "Your words are bold, very well. Our law requires that any vessel entering our border must undergo a scan. This will confirm your status and your technology. Refusal is not acceptable." The bridge went tense. A scan. Everyone knew what it meant. The aliens would examine the Endeavour, from its engines to its weapons and perhaps more. There would be no secrets. Elias nodded slowly. "We will comply." At once the screen darkened and the ship vibrated. A low hum filled the air as streams of invisible energy washed over the cruiser. Lights flickered and several consoles beeped. The crew remained silent, waiting. The scan lasted nearly a full minute. Then the vibrations stopped. The screen lit up again, showing Admiral Zalar. His face remained calm, almost uninterested. "Your ship is primitive by our standards. Your weapons are weak, your defenses fragile, your engines slow. You are not a threat to the Empire." His words stung, but Elias kept his face still. "We do not seek to be a threat, Admiral. Only partners in knowledge." The alien tilted his head as if slightly amused. "Perhaps. Perhaps not. But hear this. The galaxy is vast, and not all will treat you kindly. Some will see you as prey. Some will see you as servants. Remember your place, human. You are small, and you are not ready for the storms that move between the stars." With that, the transmission ended. The screen returned to the silent stars. The crew released the breaths they had been holding. Lieutenant Marin, the science officer, shook her head. "Well, that was encouraging." Commander Giro, second in command, frowned. "Encouraging? He practically told us we're insects." Elias turned to them. "He told us something else too. That we're not invisible. The Terethians noticed us. That means others will as well." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity had dreamed of reaching the stars, of meeting civilizations that had walked among them for millennia. Yet now that dream carried a shadow. The Terethians had looked at them, measured them, and found them unworthy of fear. But one thing unsettled Elias most of all. During the scan, he had felt something. A faint pressure at the edge of his mind, like a whisper brushing against his thoughts. It had been subtle, almost like a dream half forgotten upon waking. But he was sure it was there. Later that evening, as the Endeavour continued its course, Elias stood alone in his cabin, staring at the stars outside the viewport. He tried to reason with himself. The scan was only technical. It had examined the ship's systems, not his mind. And yet, he could not shake the sensation. He remembered the Admiral's glowing eyes, the long silence before he spoke, the strange heaviness that had pressed against him as if searching deeper than skin. What had they really scanned? On the crew deck, whispers had already begun. Ensigns spoke of strange dreams, of shadows moving in the corners of their vision. One technician claimed she had heard a voice calling her name in the dark, though no one else was there. Another said he felt a sudden rush of fear during the scan, like he was falling into an endless void. Marin, ever curious, ran checks on the ship's systems. She found faint anomalies, fragments of signals buried within the data stream of the scan. Nothing dangerous but unusual, like fingerprints left on glass. She brought the results to Elias. "Captain, this wasn't just a scan. They touched something inside us." Elias studied the data, his jaw tight. "Keep this between us for now." The crew is already uneasy. As the days passed, the crew tried to return to routine, but the sense of unease never faded. Every star outside the window seemed to watch them. Every shadow in the corridor seemed heavier. Humanity had stepped into the wider galaxy, and the wider galaxy had looked back. The first encounter with the Terethian Empire was over, but Elias knew deep in his bones that it was not finished. The scan had not just measured their ship. It had measured something else, something the Terethians had not spoken aloud. As the captain lay awake in his cabin, the memory of the alien's words echoed in his mind. "Remember your place, human?" Elias clenched his fists. Humanity's place would not be decided by alien empires. It would be decided by humanity itself. But he also knew the truth. The Terethians had seen something, and if they decided to look again, the real test would begin. The days after the first encounter passed slowly on the Endeavor. The crew tried to return to routine, but something felt different. The silence of space no longer seemed calm. It felt heavy, as if unseen eyes were watching from beyond the stars. Captain Elias Ward noticed it first in the crew's faces. Some looked pale and restless. Others moved as if distracted by thoughts far away. Their smiles were weaker, their laughter short-lived. He knew stress could do this. Every human on board carried the pressure of being the first explorers so far from Earth. But this was not just stress. It was something deeper. One morning, Lieutenant Marin, the science officer, asked for a private meeting. She entered the captain's cabin carrying a small data tablet, her expression tense. "Captain," she said, placing the tablet on his desk. "I've been analyzing the sensor logs from the Terethian scan. I found something unusual." Elias leaned forward. "Show me." She tapped the screen. Lines of data scrolled quickly, filled with codes and waveforms. At first I thought it was only background interference. But look here. Embedded inside the energy waves from their scan are patterns. They don't match any known signal. They look deliberate." Elias frowned. "What kind of patterns?" "Psychic in nature," she said quietly. "I don't mean to sound dramatic, but it's as if the scan wasn't just aimed at our ship. It was aimed at us. Our minds." Her words brought back the memory Elias had been trying to push aside, the faint pressure he had felt during the scan, like a whisper brushing across his thoughts. "Have you told anyone else?" Elias asked. Marin shook her head. "No, but Captain, the crew, they're changing. I've had reports. Nightmares, sudden headaches, unexplained voices. I think whatever they did is still with us." Elias leaned back, his eyes narrowing. "Keep investigating, but quietly. If this spreads, it could cause panic." That same night, Elias walked the corridors of the Endeavor. The ship was quiet, lit by dim blue lights along the floor. As he passed the crew quarters, he heard murmurs, sleepers tossing in their bunks, whispering names, crying out softly. One young technician sat in the hallway with his head in his hands. When Elias approached, the boy looked up, eyes red. "Sir, I saw cities burning," the boy whispered. "Not Earth, somewhere else. Towers falling, skies on fire. It felt so real." Elias placed a steady hand on his shoulder. It was just a dream. Rest now. But deep inside, the captain knew it was more than that. The following day, the dream spread. Crew members described visions of alien worlds collapsing, fleets torn apart by invisible forces, and voices speaking in languages they did not know yet somehow understood. Some reported the same phrase echoing in their minds. The cycle begins again. Commander Jiro, second in command, confronted Elias in frustration. "Captain, this is getting out of hand. The crew is breaking down. We need to turn back to Earth before it gets worse." But Elias shook his head. If we turn back without answers, we'll bring these problems with us. Whatever this is, we need to understand it. Later, Marin rushed onto the bridge, excitement in her eyes despite the tension. Captain, I found something. The anomalies from the scan. They match old transmissions recorded near the galactic core. They're fragments from an extinct species, one the Terethians fought long ago. Elias raised his eyebrows. You're saying the Terethians saw something in us? Something that reminded them of this old enemy? Marin nodded. It explains why they were so focused on us. They weren't just measuring our engines or weapons. They were searching for traces of potential. Before Elias could respond, the communication console beeped. Incoming transmission, the officer said. It's from the Terethian Empire. The bridge fell silent. Elias gestured. On screen. Once again, the golden eyes of Admiral Zaylor appeared, cold and commanding. His gaze swept across the human crew before fixing on Elias. Captain Ward, he said slowly, your ship is summoned to a second inspection. You will comply without delay. A murmur ran through the bridge. The crew stiffened in their chairs. Elias kept his voice calm. We already underwent your scan, Admiral. Our vessel and our crew pose no threat. The alien's eyes glowed faintly. Threat is not the only measure. Our science division requires confirmation. It is imperative for galactic security. You will present your ship at the coordinates we transmit. Elias's jaw tightened. And if we refuse? The alien's voice dropped, almost a growl. Refusal is not acceptable. Do not test the patience of the Empire. The transmission ended before Elias could reply. The screen returned to stars, but the air on the bridge felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Commander Jiro turned to Elias, his voice sharp. We can't let them do this. The first scan already left the crew shaken. A second one might destroy us. Marin spoke softly, her eyes distant. But Captain, what if this is our chance? If the Terethians saw something in us, maybe we need to know what it is. Even if it's dangerous, the crew looked to Elias, waiting. He stood silent for a moment, the weight of command pressing on him. Finally he spoke. We will comply, but we'll go in prepared this time. No more surprises. That night, as the Endeavor changed course toward the coordinates, the strange dreams grew stronger. Elias himself was not spared. He dreamed of a world of crystal towers shining like diamonds under twin suns. Then fire swept across the land, towers shattered, and a voice echoed in his head. They feared us once. They will fear you again. Elias woke in a cold sweat, the words still ringing in his ears. He sat at the edge of his bunk, staring at the floor, trying to calm his racing heart. He was no stranger to nightmares. Every captain knew the burden of fear. But this dream had not felt like his own. It had felt given, placed inside him by something else. The next morning he addressed the crew. His voice was steady, though his eyes betrayed the weight of his decision. We are heading to meet the Terethians again. I won't lie to you, this will not be easy, but we are explorers. We carry not just our lives, but the spirit of all humanity. Whatever comes, we will face it together. The crew stood straighter, their fear tempered by his words. For a moment, courage returned to the bridge. Yet in the silence that followed, Marin whispered what many were already thinking. Captain, what if the second scan is not just a test? What if it is a trap? Elias looked at her, his expression firm. Then we will show them that humanity is not as small as they believe. The Endeavor continued toward its destination, stars streaking past its hull. The crew prepared themselves for what awaited. Deep inside, each felt the same mixture of dread and determination. The Terethians had looked into them once and dismissed them as weak. But this time would be different, and in the quiet of space the echo of alien whispers lingered, growing stronger with every passing hour. The Endeavor reached the coordinates given by the Terethian Empire 3 days later. The crew gathered on the bridge as the ship slowed from faster-than-light travel. Before them stretched a massive Terethian station, its black metal arms reaching out like the claws of a sleeping beast. Dozens of alien warships surrounded it, their sharp hulls glowing with faint energy. Captain Elias Ward stood at the center of the bridge, his hands behind his back. His expression was calm, but inside his mind the tension grew heavier with each passing second. This was no simple inspection. It felt like a trial. A sharp beep came from the communications console. The officer turned. Captain, incoming hail from the station. On screen, Elias ordered. The image of Admiral Zaylor appeared once again. His golden eyes burned with unreadable light. Behind him, the walls of the station gleamed with symbols unknown to humans. "Captain Ward," Zaylor said coldly, "you will present your vessel for the second scan." "Do not resist." Elias kept his voice steady. "Admiral, I must ask, why a second time? We already complied with your inspection." Zaylor's gaze narrowed. "Because the first scan revealed anomalies. Your species carries traces that should not exist. We require confirmation. For the safety of the galaxy, we must be certain." The crew exchanged nervous looks. Elias felt the weight of his earlier dream pressing into his memory. Towers burning, voices whispering of fear. But he nodded. "Very well. We will comply." The transmission ended. A moment later, the ship trembled as streams of alien energy washed over it once more. At first, it seemed no different from the first scan, lights flickering, faint vibrations in the hull. But then it grew stronger. The hum deepened into a roar. Panels sparked. Crew members clutched their heads as pain shot through their skulls. Elias staggered but forced himself to remain standing. The pressure in his mind was no longer a whisper. It was a flood, crashing against his thoughts like waves against rock. "Systems are overloading." Marin shouted from her station. "This isn't just a scan, they're digging deeper." Screams echoed across the bridge as one by one, crew members collapsed. Some twitched on the floor, their eyes wide and unseeing. Others spoke in strange tongues, words spilling from their mouths that were not their own. Elias grabbed the console for balance, his vision blurring. He felt something pushing into him, searching, probing. Images flashed before his eyes. Wars he had never fought, worlds he had never seen. Armies of light and shadow clashing in the void. And always the same phrase whispered in countless voices. "The cycle begins again." "No," Elias growled, forcing the words out through clenched teeth. He pushed back, refusing to surrender his mind. To his shock, the pressure faltered. For a brief instant, he felt the invading force recoil. His thoughts, his will, had resisted. "Captain," Marin gasped, holding her head but still conscious. "Do you feel it?" "It's inside us, but we can fight it." Elias looked around. A few crew members were struggling back to their feet, their eyes glowing faintly with strange light. Ensign Kara, one of the youngest, stood shaking, but a shimmering field of energy surrounded her like a shield. She looked terrified yet determined. "What's happening to us?" Jiro demanded, his voice strained as he held himself upright. Marin's voice trembled. "The scan isn't just reading us, it's awakening something. Something buried deep." On the screen, Admiral Zaylor reappeared, his face twisted in alarm. "Impossible. You resist the probe? No species has ever—" He stopped, his golden eyes widening as if realizing a terrible truth. "You are the same. The same as them." "Them?" Elias shouted through the chaos. "Who are you talking about?" Zaylor's voice shook with fury. "The ancients. The destroyers. We ended them eons ago, and now we see their shadow in you. Humanity is cursed. You are too dangerous to exist." The transmission cut off. Outside, the Terethian warships began to move, forming attack lines. "Captain," Jiro said urgently, "they're preparing to fire." Elias clenched his fists. Around him, his crew still struggled, but many now stood taller. Their eyes glowed with faint energy, their minds linked by some invisible thread. He could feel them, feel their fear, their courage, their determination, echoing inside his own mind. Marin's voice rang out, filled with awe. "Captain, we're connected. The crew, we're linked. We can shield ourselves." The ship shuddered as the alien energy surged again, trying to crush their thoughts. But this time the humans pushed back together. A pulse of mental force spread through the ship, stabilizing the systems, protecting their minds. The bridge lights steadied. The crew gasped for breath but remained standing. Elias looked around at them. His people, humanity's first explorers. They had survived the nightmare scan. They had resisted an empire's power. "Admiral Zaylor fears us," Elias said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. "Not because of what we are, but because of what we might become." The silence was broken by alarms. "Captain," shouted the officer at Tactical. "The Terethian fleet is powering weapons." Outside the viewport, dozens of alien warships glowed with deadly light. The Empire had made its decision. Humanity was to be erased. Elias straightened, his jaw firm. "Then we'll show them what it means to be human. Ready all systems." "We fight." The crew, still shaking from the assault, nodded fiercely. They were afraid, but they were no longer broken. Something had awakened inside them, something the Terethians had not expected: resilience, unity, and the fire of human will. The second scan was over. The nightmare had begun. The Terethian warships moved in formation, their deadly engines glowing like distant suns. Outside the viewport of the Endeavor, the alien fleet stretched across the void, a wall of sharp metal and glowing energy. Their weapons charged, filling the vacuum of space with a silent but palpable threat. Captain Elias Ward gripped the edge of the command console. His eyes scanned the bridge, meeting the gazes of his crew. The fear was still there, but now it mingled with determination. They had survived the nightmare scan, and they had survived because they had pushed back together. "Status report," Elias demanded. Lieutenant Marin's fingers flew over the controls. "Weapons online, Captain, but our energy output is minimal. We can fire, but it won't be enough to penetrate their shields head-on." Commander Giro slammed his fist against his console. "They'll destroy us before we even get close. We need another way." Elias nodded, already forming a plan in his mind. "We won't fight them like a fleet. We'll fight them like humans. Creativity, unpredictability, teamwork, that's our advantage." Marin's eyes widened. "Captain, are you suggesting we improvise against a species that has conquered half the galaxy?" "Yes," Elias replied. "They underestimate us. They think humans are fragile. Let's prove them wrong." The first shots from the Terethian fleet streaked past the Endeavor. The alien beams glowed brightly, slicing through the dark emptiness of space. The ship rocked violently as the weapons struck. Alarms screamed, lights flickered, and the floor vibrated with energy. "Shields holding at 70%, Marin shouted. "But we can't take another direct hit." Elias moved to the tactical console. "Crew, focus. Use the ship's agility. We will dodge, weave, and strike where they do not expect. Everyone, think fast. Move faster." The humans began to act as one. Pilots maneuvered the Endeavor through tight patterns, avoiding beams that could have destroyed the ship in seconds. The engineering team rerouted power from non-essential systems to the shields, stabilizing them just enough to withstand repeated strikes. But the real surprise came from the crew themselves. The psychic residue left by the Terethian scan, the strange energy that had awakened inside them, now began to respond to their will. Humans who had felt weak moments before now radiated a subtle field of energy. It wasn't strong enough to destroy a ship, but it interfered with alien targeting systems. Weapons misfired. Shields flickered. The Terethians, precise and calculating, were suddenly thrown off balance. Marin's voice rang out, filled with awe. "Captain, it's working. Our minds, it's like we're one with the ship. We can anticipate their attacks before they happen." Elias's lips tightened into a determined line. "Exactly. Humans are unpredictable. That's our power." As the Endeavor dodged and weaved through the assault, Elias noticed a gap in the alien formation, a narrow corridor where their fleet was less dense. "Marin, Giro, focus all firepower there. We may not destroy them, but we can create confusion." The crew acted immediately. Lasers, plasma pulses, and energy bursts fired in precise patterns, exploiting the weakness. One by one, Terethian ships veered off course, struggling to maintain formation. For a moment, the humans saw their first victory. It was small, but it was enough to spark hope. Then another wave of terror struck. One of the Terethian cruisers fired a concentrated beam directly at the Endeavor. The ship shook violently. Panels exploded. Debris floated across the bridge, and a section of the hull groaned under the stress. Elias ducked instinctively, feeling the blast pass inches from him. "Damage report," he shouted. "Minor hull breaches in 3 sections, Marin replied. "Shields are holding, but energy levels are critical." The captain took a deep breath. They could not continue like this forever. The alien fleet was enormous, and the Endeavor was only a single ship. But Elias remembered something: the crew themselves. Their minds were linked now, and their unity was more powerful than any weapon. He spoke to the crew with calm authority. "This is it. Focus together. Use your minds. Feel the ship as an extension of yourself. We can turn their power against them." One by one, the crew closed their eyes briefly, concentrating. A faint glow emanated from each, connecting like invisible threads. The Endeavor seemed to hum in response. Energy flowed differently. Shields strengthened, and the ship moved with almost supernatural precision. The Terethians fired again, but this time their weapons struck empty space. The Endeavor danced through the battlefield with a grace no mechanical design could achieve. For the first time, the aliens hesitated. Their calculations, precise for thousands of years, could not predict human improvisation. Elias saw the moment to act. "Full power to engines!" Prepare to break through their center. The ship surged forward, faster than any human thought possible. Marin and the engineering team channeled every bit of power to the thrusters and shields. The Endeavor pierced through the middle of the Terethian formation. Confusion rippled through the alien fleet as their ships collided with each other in attempts to avoid the intruder. From the bridge, Elias watched the chaos unfold. Humans were not designed for speed or raw power, but they were brilliant. They adapted, they improvised, and they survived. And in that moment, the Terethians saw something they had not expected: human ingenuity and courage. Then the nightmare scan returned in a new form. A psychic pulse radiated from the fleet, trying to suppress the humans' awakened abilities. Crew members clutched their heads, groaning in pain. Yet Elias pushed forward. "Hold together, resist it. Don't give them control." The crew responded with unspoken coordination. Their minds linked, pushed back against the alien force. The pulse weakened, disoriented by the humans' determination. The Endeavor emerged from the center of the Terethian formation unscathed, leaving the aliens scrambling in disarray. Marin leaned back, exhausted but smiling. "Captain, we did it." "We actually did it." Elias allowed himself a brief smile. "We survived, and we showed them humanity is not weak." But there was no time for celebration. Sensors detected reinforcements approaching. More Terethian ships from the station, faster and more numerous than the first wave. The captain's expression grew serious. "They'll learn quickly. We can't fight them forever. We need a plan beyond speed and willpower." Jiro nodded. "What if we draw them away from the station? If we can separate the fleet, we have a better chance." Elias considered it. "Good. Marin, plot a course that takes us through the asteroid field nearby. We can use the terrain to our advantage." The crew executed the maneuver flawlessly. The Endeavor twisted through the field, alien ships struggling to follow. Rocks and debris became shields, forcing the Terethians to slow down and break formation. Humanity was using creativity, intuition, and instinct, the very things the Empire had never valued. As the battle raged, Elias felt a deep sense of pride. The nightmare scan had awakened something in his crew, something the aliens had hoped would be weakness. Instead, it became their greatest strength. Hours passed, and the Terethians were forced to retreat temporarily to regroup. The Endeavor was battered, lights flickered, but the crew stood victorious for the moment. They had survived the impossible and turned fear into action. Elias looked at his crew, exhausted but alive. "We may be small," he said quietly, "but we are not helpless. We are humans, and humans fight back." Outside the viewport, the stars continued to shine, indifferent to the battles below. But on the bridge of the Endeavor, humanity had proven something important. They were not just explorers. They were survivors. They were capable of defying an empire. And somewhere deep in the Terethian fleet, Admiral Zayler's golden eyes glowed with a mix of fear and disbelief. Humanity had survived the nightmare scan, and now the Empire had to reconsider its assumptions. The Endeavor sailed onward. Battered but unbroken, its crew awake to the truth. The galaxy had underestimated humans, and they would pay for it if they ever tried again. The fight was not over, but humanity had shown that even in the darkest storm, courage, creativity, and unity could shine brighter than the mightiest weapons. The Endeavor floated through the void of space, battered but unbroken. Its hull bore the scars of battle: scrapes, small breaches, and scorch marks from Terethian energy beams. The stars outside the viewport looked unchanged, calm and distant, yet everything had changed for the humans aboard. They had survived a nightmare that no other species had faced and emerged not only alive but stronger. Captain Elias Ward stood at the command console, gazing at the crew. Fatigue weighed heavily on them all, but there was a new fire in their eyes, a quiet determination that came from knowing they had faced the impossible and prevailed. "Status report," Elias ordered, his voice steady despite exhaustion. Lieutenant Marin spoke first. "Shields are stable. Hull breaches have been temporarily patched. Life support is fully operational, though some areas need permanent repair. Power reserves are low, but we can continue at reduced speed." Commander Jiro added. "Sensors show the Terethian fleet is retreating to the station. They're regrouping after the chaos we caused." They didn't expect humans to survive, much less fight back like this. Elias nodded. Good. That gives us time to plan our next move. We can't just run, but we also can't fight their entire empire alone. We need strategy, not brute force. Marin leaned closer, her eyes reflecting both exhaustion and excitement. Captain, what we've learned, what we've discovered during the scan could be important. The psychic residue, the connection between crew members. It's a power the Terethians don't understand. We can use it to escape safely and gather intelligence. Elias considered her words carefully. The psychic link they had formed during the nightmare scan was unlike anything humanity had known. It allowed them to coordinate faster than any computer, anticipate danger, and even shield themselves from the Empire's attacks. If they could use this ability wisely, they might survive, and turn the situation to their advantage. Prepare the crew, Elias said. We'll need everyone awake, alert, and ready. This is going to be delicate. Our first priority is to survive. Second is to send a message to Earth. The crew moved quickly despite their fatigue. The ship's corridors buzzed with energy as humans prepared systems, patched hull damage, and synchronized their minds. Marin stayed at the science station, monitoring the psychic link that now connected the crew. Everyone, focus, she said softly. Feel the ship, feel each other. We move as one. Elias stepped back and closed his eyes briefly. He felt the subtle threads of connection, the mental network they had formed. It was like touching a part of the universe that no human had ever reached before. He felt their fear, their determination, and their courage intertwine with his own. Engage engines, he commanded. We leave this sector now. Keep formation tight and maintain the link. The Endeavor surged forward, weaving through the debris of the asteroid field nearby. The Terethian fleet followed, but their movements were slower, less coordinated. Human unpredictability had disrupted their calculations once before, and it did so again. Marin's voice came over the intercom. Captain, I'm detecting interference ahead. Unknown signal. It's coming from outside the sector, from deep space, possibly remnants of the Terethian scanning system. Elias frowned. Can we use it? Possibly, Marin replied. It could mask our signal, hide us from the fleet, but it's risky. Elias considered the danger. Running blindly might get them caught, but using the signal could allow them to escape and even send vital information back to Earth. Do it. Take the risk. We have to turn this nightmare into an opportunity. The Endeavor adjusted its trajectory, moving carefully into the region where the signal radiated. The ship's sensors flickered as alien energy washed over them, but the crew held the psychic link strong. Together they navigated the dangerous field, avoiding traps and energy bursts designed to immobilize them. Hours passed, and slowly, the fleet began to fall behind. Human ingenuity and the psychic link had allowed them to survive repeated attacks. Elias allowed himself a moment to breathe. They were not out of danger yet, but for the first time he felt a sense of control. Then Marin spoke again. Captain, I can send a message. Not just coordinates or status, everything we've learned during the scan. The nightmare, the Terethian reaction, our abilities. Earth needs to know what we've discovered. Elias nodded. Do it, record everything. The galaxy must understand that humanity cannot be underestimated. The message began transmitting. Data streams encoded every detail of the encounter, every observation of the Empire, and the psychic abilities the Terethians had inadvertently awakened. Elias watched as the words, numbers, and images streamed into the void heading back to Earth. For the first time, he felt a quiet pride. Humanity's struggle, its pain, and its triumph would be shared with everyone at home. Suddenly, the ship trembled. Sensors screamed. Captain, Terethian scouts ahead. Elias's jaw tightened. We're not done yet. Keep the formation. Focus on the link. Move as one. The scouts fired, energy beams slicing through the void. The crew, connected and synchronized, anticipated each strike, weaving the ship through a dangerous dance. Shields glowed under the strain. Engines roared, and every human aboard felt the thrill of survival. Captain, Marin shouted, we can push through them. If we split our energy fields in a pulse, we can overload their sensors. Elias's eyes gleamed. Do it now. The crew focused, their minds linked as one. The ship shivered, then surged forward. A pulse of energy radiated outward, not destructive but disruptive. The Terethian scouts' sensors overloaded, their targeting systems failing. Beams misfired, Weapons scrambled, and for a moment humanity had turned the tables. The Endeavor shot past the scouts, leaving them behind. The fleet, watching from the distance, hesitated. For the first time, the Terithians realized that humans were not a weak race to be scanned and dismissed. They were adaptive, resilient, and united in a way no empire had ever expected. Hours later, the Endeavor reached a safe region, far from the immediate threat of the Terithian fleet. The crew, exhausted but alive, gathered on the bridge. Silence hung in the air, heavy with relief and awe. Elias looked around. "We've survived. We've shown them that humans cannot be measured by their technology alone. We are more than they expected. Stronger, cleverer, and united." Marin nodded. "The psychic link is still stable, and our systems are holding. We can continue to learn from this." "From them," Jiro smiled faintly. "Captain, I think we've proven something important. Humanity isn't just a young race. We're a species that can rise even when faced with impossible odds." Elias's eyes softened as he looked out at the stars. "And this is only the beginning. We've survived the nightmare scan, but the galaxy is vast. The Terithians will remember today, and the universe will take note. Humanity has arrived." He turned to the crew. "We head home, but we return not as victims, not as prey, but as explorers who fought, survived, and learned. Humanity will never be underestimated again." The Endeavor adjusted its course toward Earth. Stars streaked past the viewport as faster-than-light engines carried them home. The ship was battered, and the crew was tired, but their hearts were light. They had survived an encounter that could have destroyed them, awakened powers no one had predicted, and proven that humans could endure more than even an ancient empire had imagined. Marin whispered softly to Elias, "Captain, do you think they'll come back?" He looked at her, calm but resolute. "If they do, we'll be ready. Twice scanned, twice challenged, and twice stronger. Humanity is not afraid of the galaxy. The galaxy should be afraid of us." The crew smiled, weary but proud. Outside, the stars continued to shine, endless and infinite. Inside the Endeavor, a new chapter of human history had begun, a story of courage, unity, and the unstoppable spirit of humanity. As the ship sped toward Earth, Elias stood at the viewport one last time, gazing at the stars. The Terithian Empire had seen what humans were capable of, and so had the crew. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and dangers alike, but humanity had survived its first true test, and when the galaxy had doubted them, they had shown their greatest strength, the ability to rise stronger, together, from the darkest of nightmares. The stars stretched before them, infinite and bright, and the Endeavor sailed onward, carrying not just a crew, but the spirit of all humankind into the universe.